All right, here we go. David, you're probably the best person to ask this question to. What is the genesis of this project? What's the idea of doing, like, I don't know what to call it, spin-off of Harry Potter?
I think originally it was, I think it was Lionel Wigram. I know, I'm not absolutely certain, but from what I understand, Lionel said to either the studio or to Joe, wouldn't it be great to take Fantastic Beasts and turn it into a film? I think. But you have to ask Lionel or Joe or the studio, because I'm not certain.
When did you get involved?
I got involved, I was prepping Legend of Tarzan, about to shoot Legend of Tarzan, and David Heyman phoned me up and he said, can you handle another project? And I said, well, it's quite busy at the minute, but what is it? He said, well, Joe's just delivered Fantastic Beasts and it's good. Would you like to read it? And so he sent me the script, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. It felt very different to Potter. It felt like a new beginning. And for me as a filmmaker, it was an opportunity to work very closely with Joe, which was exciting, and also start a world from scratch in a way. With Potter, I joined the party halfway through, and I was inheriting certain things about Potter, all of which were great, by the way, and I loved everything that had been set up about Potter. But with Fantastic Beasts, it was my party, and I could decide who to invite. So it was a big opportunity for me to do something that was reflective of my values and sensibilities. And I got to work with Joe Rowling and Steve Kloves, both of whom I love, and of course David Heyman and Lionel.
Yeah, but this Joe was the first-time screenwriter. You know how they are.
Do that was amazing. That was the appeal.
Really?
First-time screenplay. She said, "Look, I'm going to learn a lot on this roll through because I've never done it before, and the biggest challenge was managing the tonal shifts in the material, because Joe is very generous and eclectic when she writes, because the ideas pour out at a real rate of knots, so and quickly, often, and so she would do a pass, and the first one was very whimsical and fun, and broad, and felt quite young, actually, quite young, and so you sit down and you read it, and it was really fun, but it didn't feel like it had any heft, or and Joe was always quicker than any of us, because before you open your mouth at a notes meeting, before you go, you know what, it's fun, but what's it really about? Before you even got that sentence out, Joe would say, you know what, I know it's fun, but I think it has to mean more than this. Huh. So she'd always be ahead of the curve, whatever notes we would throw at her. And then the next one, with my encouragement, I has to say, was too dark. It went too intense. It was a bit too melodramatic. It was too, because we started to then find the heft and the weight and the drama, and consequently, because Joe kind of likes that stuff too, the next one really went dark and intense, and it was a very grown-up film without any light. Well, there's a bit of light, but you had to really look for it. So anyway, over the course of 3, 4, 5 drafts, we found the meter of what it was. We found the tone, the texture of what it needed to be. And it was a balance of the light and the dark. Inevitably, always has to be. And then once Joe had the tune of it clear in her head, then we were away to the races, and we eventually ended up with a draft that we pretty much shot. And crucial in that process was Steve Kloves. Steve isn't at any of these press conferences or any of these junkets. And I gave him a hard time about that on the phone. I said, where are you? We're doing 50 interviews a day, mate, and you're nowhere to be seen. And yet he has this gift of, for Joe, he's a real inspiration. For me, he's a huge help. He adapted 4 of the Potter books. Oh, no, sorry, he adapted 7 of the Potter books, all Potter books except Order of the Phoenix, forgive me. Steve adapted most of the Potter books with the exception of Order of the Phoenix. Michael Goldenberg did that. And Steve knows Joe's world intimately. And so between us, Steve, Joe, and I, we're like this group that sit together when we develop the script. David's really helpful with notes. The studio come in with notes. But Steve's gift is to be able to make sure we don't go too dark and make sure we don't go too broad. And he's a really helpful, soulful voice in both our ears as the script progresses. And he avoids junkets, which is...
Balance is a key word in this project. I mean, it has to be Harry Potter, but it has to be different. Mm-hmm. It has to be in the human worlds, but it has to be magician in it. And it seems that you're always like on the razor edge on this one. How did you work on that?
It just takes time to kind of make sure that one tone doesn't destroy another. And in the editing process, it was clear that, you know, if it gets too melancholic, it makes the funny stuff not funny. And so that was the challenge, really. And that is the challenge of the movie, is can you tell a story about a corrupting relationship between an older and younger man, that's a young man who's damaged and looking for help, and this older man who's trying to beguile him and use him. That's a very heavy story. And can you put that in a movie that's then dealing with the more playful side of magic? And that balance is hard and tricky to pull off. And we had various iterations of the script and the movie that kind of, you know, delicately trod between those things in a way of trying to hold them all together. And it was tricky.
How do you feel that the movie fits in the Potter universe?
I think it kind of grows it up. I think it moves it forward in a way. I think it enriches it. I think it expands it. I think it makes it a bigger, bolder iteration. It takes us forward.
I am amazed by the look of the film. You guys did a terrific job.
Good.
How did you create that? Because it's not only just a magical world. It's not only Hogwarts. You have to recreate New York. You have to give it a magical feel. And how did you work on that?
Stuart Craig, production designer, James Hambridge, who helped him. We built New York in Watford. We have a studio in Watford, north of London, called Leavesden Studios, and we came to New York. We had to look at everywhere in New York, and we seriously considered filming here. But then so much of New York has moved on from 1926, so there were only little bits of New York we could feature. And it seemed so much more, so much more creative to be able to create that space ourselves back in England. And so that's what we did. And the level of detail in Stuart's sets is immense. You know, if you walk down a New York street of Stuart's, if you went into a shop to buy something, you'd find it full of things that you could only buy in 1926 in New York. He's so detailed. That's why I love working with him. He's got a terrific art department, and so yeah, it's a team of very dedicated people who love what they do and get off on what they do and are obsessed with what they do, and I and the movie benefit from that.
Another balance problem is the cast.
Yes.
I mean, when you do Harry Potter, we have Daniel Radcliffe. He's a young guy, nobody knows him, but Eddie Redmayne is like, he won an Oscar, he's a star. But he has to be get into this world and be on the same level as the other actor. How do you work on the balance of the ensemble acting?
Well, you know, you choose people that you think are clever and who embody the characters that you're casting for. You look for a sense of ambition in them. You need to be able to communicate and get on with them really well. That's so important, because it's a difficult journey making a film. There are lots of questions and challenges along the way, so you need to have a relationship of trust. And so yeah, it's the most important part of making a movie, because without getting that right, you don't really have a movie. And I love the casting process. I enjoy it. It helps me imagine the movie as I meet people, considering who I'm going to cast. Eddie, I always knew was going to be perfect for Newt. He's there's just something about his humanity and his soulfulness that I love. And then I used Eddie as a sort of start point and then cast all the actors around him.
Okay, let's talk about the other actors of the film, the creatures.
Yes.
They
Yes.
are unbelievable. How did you work on that?
Well, my note to all the animators was, let's look at the real world. Let's look at real world animals, how they operate. And on our planet, we have the most extraordinary creatures. And I didn't want that beasts to be fantastical in the sense of being unbelievable or fantastic. You know, I wanted them to feel amazing, but real. So we looked at the real animal kingdom for reference and for inspiration. And then I got a bunch of concept artists whose work was good, and they all started to imagine these things. And so in a typical session, I would walk in with my visual effects team, and on the wall, if it were in this room, on this wall, it would be full of concepts for creatures. And we'd go along and we'd look at them and we'd say, well, you don't believe that. Why would they have that? Why would they have 8 legs? That doesn't make sense. Or why has that got a snout there rather than there? So you go through and you develop it like that. And over a period of weeks and months, we'd distill these hundreds of concepts down to dozens of concepts that felt relatable to and fantastical but real.
You know that billions of kids over the world will want one of those creatures.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yes. Yeah, probably.
I don't know what will happen to the film. We never know what's going to happen to the film. Even if I suspect this one will have a good success. But the scene when they get inside the suitcase and they come to the zoo, I don't know how you want to call it.
Yes.
This will stay. This will be a classic. I want to talk about this scene and
Yes.
how you work on this, and even details, and how you leave some of the door open from one world to the other. This is magical. How did you guys do it?
Well, we had lots of conversations about how the interior shed would work, what it would look like. We started with very almost fantastical ideas of vast oceans, and Joe came along and said, it's Newt Scamander. His magic isn't that powerful. He's not a Voldemort. It needs to be magic that he can create. So we shrunk everything down into a Heath Robinson kind of space. And then over a period of months, we developed a previs, which is a sort of cartoon, which allows us to explore this space and see what it feels like. And that developed over a period of months, and every week we would change it and develop it and evolve it. And it was we always felt that was going to be the kind of crux of if the film stands or falls, really. What's it like when you go into the case? And it was fun. It's a fun sequence.
This is a beautiful sequence.
Yes. Good.
On a more personal note, do you plan to do the other ones? Are you going to be like doing a Harry Potter universe movie every 2 years? How's it going to work?
Well, I'm making the next one now, so we're in pre-production. Yeah, we start shooting in July. That's going to take me a couple of years. We'll be back here in 2 years' time, presenting it. I want to carry on working on them in some shape or form because I love the people I'm working with. It's inspiring and exciting to be working with these people. Will I direct more of them? I think I may. I don't know yet. You know, they're such big endeavors. One can only look at one at a time, really. That's what you have to do. I'm excited about the next one. It's very different to the first one. The next one is, it's like a dream.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite dark and interesting and lyrical and very different to the first one. And it's a testament to Jo as a writer that she's not repeating herself. She's kind of stretching for something that feels much more unusual, actually. And so for me as a filmmaker, that's exciting. So, of course, it's got the narrative continuity, so Newt and all the characters come back and they go through an adventure of sorts. But it just feels very different. And that's what excites me. And I just think, my instinct, I suspect, Jo will, as she develops these stories, they'll all feel, she doesn't want to repeat herself either, so they'll all feel a little different as we move along. I hope so anyway.